we are starting a new mimer, which is always exciting. Though honestly, I think every mimer we learn, I always walk away with that mimer thinking, wow, that was such an incredible mimer. We just finished Roni V'Simche Ba'aloscha. I thought it was incredible. And then before that, we did a mimer, Sheishes Yamim Te'aseh Malacha. I thought it was incredible mimer. So we could just be on a roll because I was looking back and I think every mimer we've learned felt incredible. Or maybe it's every mimer is incredible. If you learn it like in a group setting, it just highlights how unbelievable it is. So we're starting a new one. It's a very basic foundational one. So maybe you've learned it before, but it's very practical and very avodadik, which is always really wonderful. Maimarim, basically you could divide into Maimarim of Haskalah, intellect, and Maimarim of Avodah, work. So most of the time in this class, we go for the Avodah, though we have done some, officially I would call it Haskalah Maimarim, that also, of course, become Avodah. It all, in the end, turns to Avodah. So this Maimer is actually nothing to do with the time we're in now. It's from Sfiras HaOmer, but I'm like, you know what? It's short. We're going to do it. I think it has a lot of value. It's a Maimer on Oosifartem, on Sfiras HaOmer, and it is from Tafshin Yud Aleph, 1951. Which means it is almost one of the first Maimarim the Rebbe ever told us. Of course, only a Rebbe says a Maimer. So before the Nesiyas, the Rebbe did lead monthly Farbrengens for Shabbos Mevarchim, but he never said a Maimer. Only a Rebbe can say a Maimer. So this is one of the first Maimarim we ever received from the Rebbe. Very basic, simple, foundational concepts. So that means, of course, they'll be very easy and hopefully very avodadik. So if you're looking inside, this is not Muga, so you're not going to find it in Sefer HaMaimarim. I actually had to search to find it. I said, I must have it somewhere. So I have it in Sefer HaMaimarim, like the broad Maimarim, all of them, including the Bilti Muga, the non-edited ones, as the high majority of the Rebbe's Maimarim are not edited. From over 40 years, we have 6 volumes of edited Maimarim. So what happened to all the hundreds and hundreds of other ones? They're not edited. So Oosifartem lachem. Let's get started.
What year is it from?
From Tafshin Yud Aleph, 1951, meaning the Rebbe accepted the Nesiyas Yud Shvat Tafshin Yud Aleph, and this is Iyar. This is a mimer of actually Lag Ba'omer, so it's Chai Iyar. It's 3 months after the Nesiyas that the Rebbe said this mimer. Oosifartem lachem mimachras haShabbos, and you should count for yourself from the day after Shabbos, me'aviachem omer hatnufa, from the day of bringing the Korban Omer. This is talking about a mitzvah, the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer. No, you are not confused. Nowadays, in our calendar, we have nothing to do with Sfiras HaOmer. I just decided we're going to do this mimer now. The Rebbe raises 2 initial questions. The first question is, if we look at the wording of the pasuk says, Oosifartem lachem mimacharas haShabbos. And you should count, this is talking about a mitzvah. The mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer, it's a biblical mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to count days. It's a mitzvah to count weeks. And when are we supposed to count? Mimacharas, from the day after Shabbos. Well, what does that mean? Sounds like it means you count from Saturday night, right? The day after Shabbos will be Sunday. We count at night, so Saturday night. Maybe somebody would maybe there'd be a refutation. Some would say count from Sunday night. Mimacharas HaShabbos, the day after Shabbos. But we know that's not when we start counting because we live as observant Jews and we keep the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer, including today. We don't count every year from Saturday night or from Sunday night. We count from the night after the first day of Pesach. Well, that's how our sages explained it. They say Shabbos here means Yontif. And the Yontif we're talking about is Pesach. And biblically, in Eretz Yisrael, of course, also today, the Yontif of Pesach begins with a 1-day Yontif, and then it flows into Chol HaMoed. So for us, living outside Eretz Yisrael, we think, well, Sfira starts the second night of Pesach, like by the Seder. But really, it's Mimacharas HaShabbos. It's the day after the Shabbos, the Yontif of Pesach, right? So we have the Yontif, the Shabbos of Pesach, 1 day, and then Mimacharas HaShabbos, that night, the night after the first day of Pesach, that's when you start counting the Omer. So the Rebbe says the very obvious question, why does the Pasuk write it confusing when it can write it simple? Why write Mimacharas HaShabbos when the Pasuk could have, I'm not going to say should have, but could have written, Mimacharas HaPesach. Start counting the Omer, Sfiras HaOmer, from the day after the Yontif of Pesach, which is what we do, but it's not what's written. So why? And we actually know there were a whole group of Jews who argued on the Sfiras HaOmer count based on this pasuk. That group, they were called the Tzedukim. There's a certain time in the era of the Bayis Sheni, of the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, when there were 2 people that started off as wannabe Torah scholars. One's name was Tzadok and one's name was Bitus. And they left and created movements, Tzedukim and Bitusim. Pretty similar. I mean, I'm sure between themselves there was rivalry, but from the outside, pretty similar. In both groups, there was basically a rejection of the sages, a rejection of Torah Sheba'al Peh, but a keeping of Torah. We believe in God. We believe in Torah, just not what the rabbis added. Sounds familiar? Yes. We have, of course, modern days echoes of this, but the original people that came up with this approach, Tzadok and Bitus, Tzedukim and Bitusim. And this was in the time of the second Beis Mikdash, after, of course, the whole miracle of Hanukkah, and then the Hashmonai takeover, and then the very fast moral breakdown of the Jewish people. Of course, many, many Jews stayed loyal to the sages and stayed loyal to Torah, but the affluent ones, the powerful ones, the ones in the government, basically became Tzedukim or Bitusim. And they said, of course, we keep Sfiras HaOmer. God said to, and when do we count it? The first Saturday night after Passover begins. The first Saturday night after Pesach, because that's what the pasuk says, Mimarchas HaShabbos. And there was actually a whole debate between the sages and the Tzedukim to prove that it is impossible to say that in this situation, Mimarchas HaShabbos means from the first Saturday night after Pesach. And rather, it means from the first night after the first day of the Yontif, the holiday Pesach. Okay, so that was a little historical background, but the bottom line question is very obvious. Why does the pasuk say Mimachos HaShabbos when it could have just said Mimachos HaPesach and we would have obviated all of our problems? That's the first question. The second question that the Rebbe goes into is, we have two issues within the concept of the Omer. Both are alluded to in our pasuk. The counting of the Omer and the offering of the Omer. There was an Omer offering and there was an Omer counting. On the second day of Pesach, which again in Eretz Yisrael is Chol HaMoed, there was this whole ceremony of cutting the sheaves of barley that had grown and offering it in the Beis HaMikdash as the Karban Omer. Already the night before, Mimarchas HaPesach, Mimarchas HaShabbos, we began the count, the 49-day count, from after the first day of Pesach until, of course, culminating in the holiday of Shavuos. So this is the road to Shavuos, the offering of the Omer and the counting of the Omer. So the Rebbe in the second question focuses on the offering and says, we know that this offering was very unique because it was barley, as I just mentioned. Nowadays, of course, barley is healthy and loved, but originally, barley is animal food. And we don't offer animal food as an offering to God. That's not honorable. We want to give God the best. We don't want to give him animal food. So when there was a grain offering, as there were, and they were called the menachos, the grain offerings, the grain was always the same, fine flour, right? No whole wheat here. The finest white flour, that was the mincha offering. That's the finest of flour, and that's what we give to God. Except for two times. There are two grain offerings that were not from fine flour. One is the one we're dealing with, and one is the Isha Saita. If there was a woman who was suspected of perhaps having some type of relationship, be an adulterous relationship because she's a married woman, and her husband warned her not to be alone with this man, and she was alone, and we don't know what happened, but she has to offer a specific carbon, an offering. It's the carbon of the Saita. And her carbon is not from white fine flour. It's from barley. But there we understand what's going on. The sages explained to us. She behaved possibly, we don't know for sure, but potentially like an animal. And therefore her offering is animal food. Makes sense. She's behaving perhaps very inappropriately. So it's not appropriate. She gets to offer fine flour to God. Who is she? She acted perhaps like an animal. Let her bring the food of an animal. Let her bring barley. But what's going on here? Nobody's doing anything wrong here. This is a very honored ceremony. The sages are going to the field to watch the harvesting. These are the first sheaves. This is the Chadash offering. This is a very special, beautiful offering to God. No one messed up and behaved like an animal here. So why is it from barley? And interestingly enough, our sages don't explain. But why is it from barley? That's the second question the Rebbe raises. After raising those two questions, we start talking about the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer, and specifically we're putting it in the construct of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Sfiras HaOmer, Matan Torah, the Exodus, the counting of the Omer, and the receiving of the Torah, because that is one flow of spiritual work. So the Rebbe, to unpack this, turns to a verse from Shir HaShirim, from Song of Songs. And the pasuk, the verse is, Mashcheni acharecha narutza, Hevi'ani hamelech chedra. We have these three phrases. 1, Mashcheni, draw me. 2, Acharecha narutza, after you we will run. 3, Hevi'ani hamelech chedra, the king brought me into his chambers. And the Rebbe explains that these three phrases connect to the three stops, so to speak, that we're discussing here. Mashcheni, Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus. Acharecha narutza, after you we will run, Sfiras HaOmer. Hevi'ani hamelech chedrav, the king brought me into his chambers, Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. Why? So let's explore this a little bit. The Rebbe says, if you look here, it's very interesting, the specificity of the language is the first word here is mashcheni. Mashcheni is in the singular. Mashcheni, draw me. You draw me, singular. And then somehow the verse switches to the plural voice. Acharecha, after you, narutza, we will run. So it started off mashcheni, draw me, and then the next beat, after you, we, the I became a we will run. So what's going on? What's this draw me? What's this running? Why do we go from singular to plural? The Rebbe says, and for us, again, from all the Chassidus we've learned already, this should be very, very obvious and very clear. The Rebbe says we're starting off by Yetzias Mitzrayim. We're starting off by the Exodus from Egypt. And how did the Jews get out of Egypt? Right? They were on the 49th level of impurity. They were so weak spiritually. They were weak to such a degree that the angels looking above said, what's the difference between the Jews and the Egyptians? Of course, there was a critical difference, but almost as if you couldn't see it. How did we get out? Because because God revealed himself and pulled us out. That revelation had like nothing to do with us. Really. We're hanging out there in the 49th level of impurity, and if we waited a few more minutes, we would have sunk to the 50th level, and there we are for eternity. And God completely revealed himself in the most unprecedented way and pulled us out. Mashcheni, draw me. I'm weak. I'm helpless. Come save me. Who's talking? The I, the singular voice, is the neshama. Why the neshama? Well, you have these two components of self, the neshama, the soul, and the nefesh bahami, the animal soul. But this enormous revelation of God's presence, like lo paga v'lo naga, the animal soul is oblivious because it has nothing to do almost with us. It's such a blinding light, we don't even see it. So the godly soul, even though it says the godly soul in a Jew who's hanging out on the 49th level of impurity, it's a godly soul. So when Hashem completely reveals himself, the godly soul feels it. And the godly soul is schlepped, is drawn by this revelation. And the animal soul is oblivious. The animal soul was completely not affected. If we can envision this in ourselves, and it's hard to envision ourselves because, of course, we never experienced this. Of course, we did experience it because we were there, but we don't remember that time. But if you would imagine now a situation where your godly soul is completely on fire and your animal soul is just doing her thing and being an animal, we would call that a dichotomy, right? Like, we're not communicating here. But sometimes we experience things sort of like that in our own lives, where our spiritual energy is all excited and our animal nature is doing very animalistic things because it's just not catching the enthusiasm. It's not relating to it. It's got nothing to do with it. To such a degree was the animal soul unaffected by the fire of Hashem's presence that the verse says, and the Alter Rebbe discusses this in Tanya, Paro was told, Ki barach ha'am. The nation fled. The nation ran out of Egypt. That's the report. True news, not fake. They ran out of Egypt. The Alter Rebbe questions this in Tanya, and he says, what's going on? Everyone in Egypt was saying, bye, bye, go, go, good riddance. Paro was saying, get out of here. All the people were saying, what do you want? Silver, gold, our clothing, just go. So who are they running from? Everyone wants them to leave. Nobody's chasing them. Yeah, later they started chasing them. We know that story. But the day of Yetzias Mitzrayim, on the 15th of Nisan, when 3 million people left Egypt, no one was chasing them. Everyone was begging them to go. I mean, we thought it was just going to be the firstborn. It seems like everyone's dying. Get out of here before we're all dead. Why does the pasuk say they ran? And the Alter Rebbe says a very, very interesting concept. The Alter Rebbe says they were running from themselves. That's what he says. He's bringing it in to describe a situation where you've got all this God energy, but stuck in the prison of body and animal soul. Dichotomy, separation, two very different energies. And that's what happened originally by Yetzias Mitzrayim. The neshama's on fire. God is completely revealed. The neshama's like, I'm coming. And the animal soul is like, not at all part of this experience. The animal soul is stuck in the immoralities of Egypt. Is stuck in Memtes Share Tuma, in the 49th level of impurity. So what's a godly soul supposed to do with an appendage of the 49th level of impurity? She runs. Why does she run? Because she has no language of communication here. She has no way of conveying to the animal soul what she's experiencing. Why can she not explain this? Because it's truly not part of her reality either. Meaning Hashem didn't reveal himself in a way that fit into our boxes. Because our boxes were really small, and if he got into our boxes, he wouldn't have gotten us out. So he revealed himself big time, way bigger than any of our boxes, including the box of the godly soul. So the godly soul is drawn. She feels this. It's a light that's pulling her, but it's not a light she's integrating. So if she can't integrate it, for sure she can't convey it to the animal soul. So this sounds sort of abstract, and this happened 3,300 some years ago. But I think this concept of running from ourselves might be a concept we can relate to. Meaning, in essence, the godly soul was in a situation where there was evil inside the animal soul, and she had no way of handling it. She had no grip on it. She had no way of transforming it. She did the only thing she could. She ran from it. Not physically, obviously, wherever she ran, the animal soul will go with her. But spiritually, she's running. She's distancing herself from the animal because I'm just going to get effective if I hang around. How I was translating in my head, it's like a situation where the voices inside of you that are pulling you in a wrong direction are really, really strong. They're too strong for you to handle. But you know you don't want to go in that direction. And you just escape them. You don't deal with them. You can't deal with them. You can't debate them. You can't argue it. You can't convince. You just run. You just run away. Again, for different people, running away might be something different. One person's version of running away might be just immersing herself into Hillim. Another person's running away might be distracting herself. Another person's running away might be putting herself in a certain situation where whatever the voices are saying is irrelevant right now, and we just obviated that issue. But like when you have a really strong animal soul, evil inclination voice, that's really, like a very simple example, like a voice that's really pulling you down and making you feel bad about yourself. A really strong voice convincing you one more time that you messed up, that you're a loser, that you're not capable, whatever. I think they teach this in Yitzhahar preschool, make us really small, then we fall apart. So a voice that's trying to make you really small, and you don't want to listen to that voice. And that voice is very unhealthy, but somehow it's you just can't deal with it. It's too strong for you to deal with. and you just run from it. You don't deal with it. You don't try to bring it into your godly space. You can't. You don't have the strength for that. You just run. You just separate yourself. You just detach from that voice because you can't handle it and you don't want to get pulled down by it. That, I think, is our application of this concept. Meaning, I believe we do go through this, and maybe we're consciously running, or maybe it's just our instinct. But I think we also have situations, just like we had by the Exodus, where the evil inside of us is very strong, and we just have no other way to handle it. Okay, so right, someone's Chava saying when you have doubts, that's a very practical example, right? When there's doubts going on and you can't engage them, you can't talk about them because you don't have what to say. It's actually a very, very, very good example. You don't have what to say. You can't argue with the doubts. So you just run from them. Now, obviously, running is not the best strategy and the wisest technique. And obviously, if you run, they're going to try to come back and get you. But sometimes it's our only recourse. If we're too weak to answer back and refute and be strong and conquer the territory, better strategies, but you need to be stronger for it. Sometimes we just do what's the best thing in that situation, and we run. So thank you, Chava, for that. That was a good one. So that's what happened by Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's what happened by the Exodus. The souls ran. The animal souls were completely unaffected because this was all from above to below, milmaila limata, revelation of God that had nothing to do with our work at all. Sounds sort of nice. Like, I'd like to have all these gifts that have nothing to do with my work. So there's an advantage to it. It's pretty big. It's pretty powerful. But there was a disadvantage. It had nothing to do with them. And that's why it couldn't be integrated. So that was like step one, Yetzias Mitzrayim, from above to below, complete revelation of God. The soul is drawn, and the animal soul is like, I don't even know what this party is about at all. And then we began the Sphira count. We began Sphiras HaOmer. We have actually two aspects of the Omer, Sphiras HaOmer and Minchas HaOmer, Hakravas HaOmer. We have the offering of the Omer, and we have the counting of the Omer. Both the offering and the counting are really targeting our animal soul. Because after that first flash of God, there was a climb, right? There was the flash, and then there was the climb. Yes, even us in that previous lifetime, we didn't get away with no work flashes. We had to do a lot of work. That was the climb. The climb meaning, Lamata Lamaila. Now we are the initiators. Now we are doing the work. And because it's us, actually, interestingly enough, the force that was really the catalyst of work was the animal soul. I mean, why are we giving the animal soul such credit here? She's the animal that we were running from. Why are we saying, oh, and she became the hero? Because we look at this verse from Song of Songs, from Shir Shirim. Mashcheni, okay, that was stage one. God's drawing us. We are, helpless, and God just pulls us out. But then the verse says, Acharecha na rutza. We said, why go to plural? But before we think about that, suddenly we're not being pulled. Suddenly we're running. The fact that we're running, that tells me it's the animal soul. Why? Because godly souls don't run. Godly souls are, ladies or gentlemen. They're going to walk. In a sense, Hasidus can go back and forth on this, but from the perspective we're going to take here, the godly soul has a certain limitation, obviously not in her essence and being, because her essence and being is essence and being of God. But as she's manifest inside of us, the godly soul is in a box, the box of limitation, like almost a conformity, a restriction on her light. The animal soul is an animal. She's got no boxes. She's an animal. She runs on instinct. She runs on instinct because the animal soul is limitless power, whatever she wants to do. So the godly soul is a lot safer. She wants God's will, but she's boxed in. She's going to walk toward God. The animal soul, if you ignite her fire, she's going to run. And when she runs, she draws the godly soul with her. Her run frees the godly soul to run as well. Now, this is a very foundational mimer, as I said. This is the mimer the Rebbe told us in the third month, so to speak, of his nesiyos, of his leadership. But this concept he develops more and more and more, and later mimerim, of this like dance between your godly and your animal. Obviously, your godly is a godly soul, so a lot more powerful and godly. But using the animal, there's a power in the animal soul and in the body that can ignite and be ignited by the godly soul, like a dance between the godly soul and the body animal soul. And on one hand, of course, the godly soul is a piece of God. On the other hand, one of the Rebbe's most frequent quotes, and by Mashiach, energy of the body will feed the energy of the soul. Meaning, there's a depth of connection to God the body, animal soul has that's on a certain level and deeper than the godly souls. It's the dance between the two of them. So the godly soul wants God. The animal soul is confused and thinks she wants her own pleasures. But when we get the animal to understand that your ultimate pleasure is God, she's on board. And when she's on board, she lights the fire of the godly soul because she's going to run. And when she runs, her lack of inhibitions frees the godly soul as well. Hey, you can't leave me behind. You're going to God ahead of me. And the godly soul runs as well. You can almost envision, if you want a different vision, this is not exactly how the Rebbe is saying it here, but like the godly soul is the man and the animal soul is the animal. So when you get the animal on board, the man jumps on the back of the animal and the two of them race together. The man racing with the animal. Or as we say, Rav Tvuos b'koyach shor. An ox has a lot of productivity. If you can channel your animal to serve God, your service of God is on fire. And if you don't get your animal, your service of God is limited, farfetched, not on fire, because the limitations are very strong now. So I think this is also like a really amazing concept, and it's such a Rebbe concept. You know, I mean, for us, again, we're after so many years of the Rebbe's nesiyos, so it's such a natural concept for us. But you envision the Rebbe teaching it to the Hasidim in 1951, and it's such a mind-bending idea. It's so Rebbe and it's so mind-bending that, like, use your animal soul. Use it. You have it. Use it. Bring it on board. There's a story of some bacher that was like, whatever, going off the derech, wild, crazy guy. And then something inspired him. I don't know what. And he came back on and he became like a wonderful, yeshiva, 770 bacher. And he's doing all the wonderful 770 bacher things that they're supposed to do, learning and davening and all the rest. And one day, the mashgiach came over to him and he said, "Why are you cheating Hashem?" I said, "What? Hello? All I do is learn and daven. I'm so good." And the mashgiach said, "No, you're cheating Hashem. When you were not living a life for God, when you were not living for Hashem, you were wild and crazy and had so much amazing energy that was going in the wrong direction. But now, when you're serving Hashem, what happened to all your energy? Where did it all go? You're cheating Hashem. God gave you that energy. He wants you to use that energy for Him." Now, I think that's a very Rebbe thought that has become so normal to us that we think everyone thinks that way. But it's an amazing point the Rebbe's bringing out here. Any practical applications? Have you seen this in your life, how you can get your animal soul on board and then there's a lot of excitement, or how you don't, and then you're doing the right thing but don't feel that excitement? Anyone have seen it either way in themselves or both?
Where I like to apply this is davening, inspired by explanation of like the Mitzvah Rebbe's Kapelia, where in a song there's a whole stanza which is the battle, which is referring to the time of davening, and that's when we're taking the kayach of the Nefesh Bahami and applying it into our davening, and it's a very tricky thing. So that's why the niggin ends on a high note, which is trust. That we trust Hashem. That even though I'm Naval, that you're wrestling with someone dirty, then you get dirty. That we're not going to get pulled down since it is risky. But I heard that somebody wrote to the Rebbe once about getting advice for how to focus in davening. And the Rebbe started to sing to the tune of Es and Esech, and it's such an inspiring thing, like that idea.
So how do you get Nefesh Bahami involved when you daven?
So I picture if I were on a lower level, if I were to be in the mood of something right now, something to eat, like what would it be? And I envision that, and I like feel that like passion build up, and then I like throw that passion into the words, and it's really powerful. It really works. And then it's so embarrassing because I'm like, gosh, so I got excited about a piece of cheesecake, like it's so silly, but it actually works. And then I guess more refined level, on a more refined level is just like really like envisioning the beauty, like in Hashem's creations, and just really like becoming like wowed by it, which to me is a beautiful thing. And then taking like that energy of like excitement from that and applying it like to whatever words I'm saying.
Wow. I can see how the cheesecake could work. Yeah. Hashem made us human. He did. And he wants us to use our humanity to serve him. And if we could use our excitement for cheesecake or chocolate or a steak during the 9 days, whatever it is, if you could use that and pour that into your davening, I think that's unbelievable. I think that's amazing. That's unbelievable. Wow. Blown away. Anyone else have had any, like, in either direction, Nefesh Bahami excitement, connecting? I mean, we do this all the time. I mean, anytime you would want to do this with your children, right? It's Shavuos, and I know for myself, Shavuos, I always hype up our party, our milchiks, the cheesecake and the ice cream and the blintzes, and it's because we got the Torah and we're so excited. Hashem gave us the Torah and we're having this huge milchik feast because Hashem gave us the Torah. What are we doing? That's exactly what we're doing. We're bringing our Nefesh Bahami in, and Nefesh Bahami is like, whoa, this is good stuff. And we're saying it's the best stuff because we got the best stuff in the world. We got the Torah, and that's why we're partying. That's what we're doing. We're bringing our Nefesh Bahami on board. And if before Shavuos your Nefesh Bahami is excited about the cheesecakes, great, you got your Nefesh Bahami on board, right? That's the whole idea of Matan Torah. Shavuos, Nami Lachem. It's also about the body. The body was chosen. Let's get the body excited. You can't fast on Shavuos because the body has to enjoy the party. Well, what do you mean the party? It's godliness. Well, but the body might not relate to that. But the body has to enjoy Shavuos, so make sure there's lots of good food for the body to enjoy Shavuos. So we do this. We might not be philosophically thinking, I'm trying to bring my animal soul on board because the animal soul has more energy than the godly. And if I get the animal soul on board, it will free up the godly soul's energy, which is more powerful, but more constricted. And you're not going through the philosophy, but we do it. So we naturally do it for our children. I'm sure we do it all the time. And so many people I know try to make Shabbos meals fun. Shabbos meals exciting. People bring games into their Shabbos meals, or decor into their Shabbos meals, or special foods into their Shabbos meals. For your godly soul? No, for your animal soul. Get my animal soul on board. Get my animal soul to love Shabbos. I want my animal soul to love Shabbos, so my animal soul and godly soul together will be flying in their love of Shabbos. So I think for other people, we do it naturally without even like thinking about it. It's just so automatic. It's just so obvious to us. But do we see that also within ourselves? Have we done it? Do we see a way we could do it? Do you see when you didn't do it and what happens when it's only your godly soul involved? I loved what Leah said. I thought that was unbelievable. Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
I think even the concept of like nefesh bria beguf bari and, you know, self-care could tie into this, you know. Yeah. Sort of like we say, like, happy mommy is, you know, when mommy's happy, then the whole house is happy kind of thing. So also in a spiritual way, like when our body has what it needs, we have we're able to focus on whatever it is we spiritual we want to do, like eating before davening or, you know, whatever on a more sophisticated level also.
Those are great examples. Yeah, perfect examples, right? That like even Stray said very practically, we eat before davening, right? And, you know, we know the whole story with the Rebbe that he was giving out cake in the sukkah and like, oh, you shouldn't do this publicly. And the Rebbe says, we're not embarrassed from a Hasidic minhag. We eat before davening. Why do we eat before davening? So we don't race through davening to eat. We eat before davening, so we have the strength to daven. And yeah, that whole idea of caring for our bodies, of giving our bodies what our body needs. If it's the time it takes to cut a salad, it takes a long time. If it's exercising, if it's a walk, if it's a little quiet space. And then from that point, we serve Hashem with an animal soul and body that's on board. Like, oh, this is good. Yeah, this is good. Serving Hashem is good. We're serving Hashem, and therefore we're taking care of our body. That's part of serving Hashem. So we're roping the animal soul in. We're speaking your language. We're taking care of ourselves in a physical way. We're on board to use this energy for Hashem. Yeah, absolutely. The goal really would be to think of a place that maybe, and this is really what Leah was doing, would really be the goal, but she already like surpassed the goal before I even started. The goal would be to think of a space where I want to consciously bring my animal soul in. An area where I'm a little weaker spiritually, or I'm very weak spiritually, and it's not cutting it just with my godly soul. Like my godly soul wants God. You don't have to convince her. She always wants to learn. She always wants to daven. She always wants to say Tehillim. She always wants to give tzedakah. She always wants to give the benefit of the doubt. She always wants to be kind. She always wants to be generous. She always wants to self-sacrifice. Your animal soul is on board. Godly soul is on board before you start. Like, she's good. She's there. So then why sometimes do I struggle so much with any of those things? And imagine if I could convince my animal soul. I could bring in my animal soul, like Leah gave us this beautiful example, to my davening or to my learning. I could bring in my animal soul to my learning. Learning is geschmack. Learning tastes good. It says in Kunshas Umayin, beginning of Kunshas Umayin, so we probably all learned that. You know, it's long, but the beginning we all started, right? So the beginning of Kunshas Umayin, the Rebbe Rashab lists a hierarchy of pleasures. There's like the cheesecake pleasures. And there's the higher pleasures of music, art, literature. And the greatest pleasure, not talking anything spiritual, the greatest human pleasure is the pleasure of the mind. You could bring your Nefesh HaBahami into Torah. You could. Got to figure out how. You could. Because it's the greatest human pleasure, and the Nefesh HaBahami wants pleasure. The best pleasure is when your mind is excited by some stimulating thought. By Torah. Rope the Nefesh HaBahami in, and you will be flying in your Torah learning. And same thing with everything else. We feel best when we give to others. It makes me feel good to give. Get my animal soul on board to know that I want to go on Mivtzayim because I'm going to feel great after. And watch your power in Mivtzayim. I want to do this chesed because I'm going to feel good. And watch your power in chesed. Again, you could say, oh my gosh, everything I do. No, just the stuff that's hard for you. Just the stuff you're struggling with. Just the stuff you want to energize. bring your Nefesh HaBahami in. That's how you energize it. All right. So that was our homework assignment. I know everyone came on looking for homework. So that's our homework assignment. And it's just very powerful and very exciting. You take something you struggle with and you could fly in it if you get your Nefesh HaBahami to be part of the process.